Hey there, everyone. From beautiful Fort Collins, Colorado, halfway between Cheyenne and Denver, and 5,003 feet above sea level, I'm Jeff Haber, and you're listening to No Bed of Roses. No Bed of Roses is brought to you by Connexus. How many times have you been watching a YouTube video, music video, a movie, and you've seen something that either you just have to have or want some information about? Good luck trying to get that jacket that your favorite star is wearing, right? With Connexus-enabled video content, you tap on that jacket and boom, you're taken directly to the merchant selling that jacket, but you never leave the video. It's truly sick. But this is audio and we're talking about video. You can see for yourself at Connexus. That's KENXUS.com. Connexus.com. Welcome back, everyone. If you've ever taken a family road trip here in the U.S., you may well be familiar with the last name of today's guest. The granddaughter of the founder of an American iconic roadside experience has reclaimed her family's namesake business, one that is uniquely American. Stephanie Stuckey brings unbridled passion, joy, and humor to all that she does, and her resurrection of Stuckey's is, just like those family road trips with kids squished into the way back, a journey full of challenges and a look back at where she's been, where she is, and where she's going. So here's Stephanie Stuckey. There are so few things that are authentic anymore. To me, it's just immensely appealing.
That's such a good point, because in this era of social media, there's all these personas out there that people just create for an online avatar or presence, and it's not real. I think about 90%, maybe more, of what we see on social media is just not real. And I think that's why there's been a connection with the Stuckey's brand and our comeback efforts, because one, there's definitely a nostalgic connection that people of a certain era have with the brand, but even people who aren't of an age where they remember shopping at Stuckey's when we were really at our prime, they connect with the authenticity and the vulnerability and the willingness to just put it out there.
Absolutely. It is an authentic piece of Americana. You can't market your way to that. You can't fabricate that. I mean, you can try. There are brands that have been kind of successful in creating a faux authentic experience. That's a contradiction right there. But this is the real deal. And you've got the name and now the business, and it seems, my sense, the gumption and the fire in the belly to make it all happen. But let me ask you to back up a little bit. There's your history, there's your family history, there's the business history. I know it's all intertwined. You grew up in the business. Is that fair to say, Stephanie?
No, actually, not at all. Did not grow up in the business. Never thought I would be involved with Stuckey's. I was number 4 of my dad's 5 kids. I was number 5 of my grandfather's grandchildren. The company was sold the year before I was born to a corporation, a large corporation. It fell out of family hands for decades. I grew up thinking I was going to be in politics, which is what I did. I was in elected office as a state representative for 14 years. And then I was an environmental attorney and head of sustainability for the city of Atlanta. So had a very different life trajectory and never thought I would be running the family business. It's been a crazy journey.
I guess I should say I misspoke, because when I say you grew up in the business, in that it was a family business. It was in your home. But even then, it sounds like you were young when the family sold out of it. Is that right?
I wasn't even born.
That's pretty young.
It was sold in 1964.
Okay.
The brand always had my name on it. So there was that connection, obviously. It fell out of family hands for over 2 decades. And my father got the company back in 1985 when I was in college. And he was running several other companies successfully. And the company that had bought Stuckey. So it'd been a couple of mergers and acquisitions along the way. And at that point, Stuckey's had plummeted and was hemorrhaging cash, and they were happy to unload themselves of this company. My father got Stuckey's back for next to nothing.
What an experience having to get your name back and
yes,
and get it back for, hey, we got a deal on the name. We got it for next. It's your name. It's your business.
Yes.
So Stephanie, what was your dad doing? What line of work was he in? You said there were a couple of mergers and it all sort of came home again, but what was he doing?
Well, my father, like me, or I guess I'm like my father, I pursued a career in public service, and he had been in Congress. He served for 10 years in the U.S. Congress from Georgia, left that to run a company that he founded, which was Interstate Dairy Queen Corporation. He had the franchise rights to all of the Dairy Queen stores in the U.S. on the interstate highway system.
Holy moly.
Yes.
Wow.
So that was my father's company. People associate him, of course, with Stuckey's because it's his name. But really what he did so incredibly well and was financially very successful with was Dairy Queen. And he ran Dairy Queen for almost 40 years, sold Dairy Queen in 2012 to Warren Buffett, who owns American Dairy Queen. Warren Buffett did not buy Stuckey's, was not interested. And so Stuckey's was just this afterthought. What do you do with Stuckey's? My father and his business partners did very well with this sale of Dairy Queen, and they were older and they retired. And they left Stuckey's with a small crew running the company, did not have a lot of financing for the company. There was no marketing budget. There was no CEO. At that point, none of the stores were never owned or operated by the company. We did not have corporate-owned stores. So
all franchises.
All franchises. Yeah. So the assets at that point were really just the brand and a distribution facility that was rented, 3 sales reps that serviced the stores, a CFO, a vice president, a warehouse staff of 2 with occasional seasonal pickers picking warehouse items.
The definition that's a definition of a skeleton staff. I'm kind of stuck on the Oracle from Omaha. You know, your dad, I don't know if it's your dad's team or representative talking to Buffett's team, or if these are two old school. Okay. So
I wish it was my father hanging out with Warren Buffett.
It would be an awesome story, right? Right.
But my dad was excited that Warren Buffett's signature is actually on the paperwork, but they did not meet him. But it's a testament to my father that he ran the company so well that it would attract Warren Buffett's attention and that he would want to acquire it. Warren Buffett loves Dairy Queen. I think he's had American Dairy Queen for decades. He's had that brand a very long time.
It's fair to say your dad was the king of the queen. At least the interstate queen, right?
That's good. And it's a good phrase because Stuckey's is known for our King of the Road special, which is 99 cents, 2 eggs, toast, and jam.
Come on now. The Grand Slam has nothing on you. Wait, do it again. Is this
99
now?
99-cent breakfast special. We have a few stores that still offer that. And it's what's known in the industry as a loss leader, right? It gets people in the door. You're not making money. It's like when they give you free refills of the big gulp at 7-Eleven or whatnot. It gets people in the door. And the whole idea is hopefully once they get in the door, they're going to buy $20, $30, $40 of other stuff. And you take a loss on that one item, but it gets them.
So what's in the breakfast again for 99 cents?
2 eggs, toast, and jam.
Mama,
right?
2 eggs,
that's a great breakfast.
It's
what more
crazy.
Could you need? And I love that they have the jam, right? The little.
I love the jam.
Dollop of jam.
Is it in the little foil, the peel back foil packet?
It is now, but
when
when we started the program, you'd have that dollop of
in the Dixie
really good preserves, and I'm sure there was a square of melted butter, right?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. I think you just need if you throw a coffee in there, Stephanie, this is it. You go from gold to platinum. It's ridiculous.
We used to have a coffee club. I wish we could again, but our franchise system needs a lot of love. So we're just not equipped right now to manage a coffee club program, but we had a coffee club program and we had the most beautiful Fire King mugs. They were part of the coffee club, and you would take that mug. If you bought the mug, you would get free coffee at Stuckey's.
At any Stuckey's that you went into?
Any Stuckey's.
Yeah, this is a beautiful thing. I love this.
Yeah, and those mugs are now going on eBay. I've seen them anywhere from $150 to $250.
See, this goes right back to the authentic piece. I mean, this is so cool. It's so cool.
They're all over Instagram, and they're huge in Japan. Is that crazy? I have all these followers on Instagram from Japan who have the Stuckey's Coffee Club mug, and Fire King, the manufacturer of the milk glass mugs, which these were milk glass Fire King mugs, was bought by a Japanese company. And they were producing them until about a decade ago. So they're very popular in Japan. My dream is to have Stuckey's in Japan because they already know our brand. Yeah,
I was just going to ask you. So I know that the Japanese in general are really keen on authentic Americana. Exactly what we're talking about. It's great that you're looking at Japan. I worked for a company, Stephanie, for the Chaya Group in Los Angeles, and I opened the $7 million flagship, their restaurant in downtown LA. The great story about this company, real quickly, is it's now probably 480 years old. Same Japanese family that opened a tea house almost 500 years ago in Hayama, Japan. It's still open. It is the Chaya Group, and they have Chaya patisserie all over Japan, and they have Chaya Venice, Chaya Beverly Hills, Chaya Downtown. The real quick story, and this is a case study in the Marshall School of Business at USC, is the owner of the company went into Starbucks early on in Santa Monica. He speaks broken English at best and was behind a couple in the queue going to the counter and goes to order his coffee. And she said, "Good morning, welcome to Starbucks. What can I get you, sir?" And he goes, "I have what they have." Points to a couple. Okay, great. That was a latte. Let me get that for you. Next day, he comes back again. He's standing in the queue, gets the line, same barista. And she says, "Oh, hey, welcome back. Welcome back to Starbucks. What can I get you this morning?" "I have what they have." Same thing in his broken English. And she says, "Okay." Third day, he comes back. "Good morning. Welcome to Starbucks. Hey, you know what? You want to try something different this morning?" And engages with this guy, right? His name is Yuji. And on the fourth day, he does it again. And fifth day, he writes a letter to Howard Schultz. And he says, "I had an amazing experience because of the genuine hospitality offered to me by your barista at the Starbucks in Santa Monica. Should you ever be interested in going to Japan, I would love to talk to you." I want to tell you, Stephanie, it's over 3,000 stores in Japan. He owns Starbucks
love that
Japan.
Story.
True story. I have goosebumps telling this to you and sharing this with you because it's that genuine, authentic hospitality, that connection between an hourly paid barista and international business guy.
The word you said that's so critical, hospitality.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal for me. I just did a show, and we're having a lot of discussions about a concept that I have, Stephanie, that I call the mutant hospitality gene. For people who have careers in hospitality, this is why we do what we do. We have this desire. It's something we can't shake. We need to be of service. I feel that gene is in, if not all of us, and many of us, and in some of us, it's dormant and needs to be stimulated a bit. And if we could just tap into this mutant hospitality gene that I feel is in fact in all of us, we can probably raise the vibration of this planet a couple of notches and start to really see what it is to give genuine hospitality and receive genuine hospitality and genuinely care for one another. What people in hospitality do all the time.
I'm going to borrow that.
It's all yours, man. I want to spread that word, that good news. Have you heard the good news? It's called the mutant hospitality gene. A colleague of mine, when I was at Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts, I was discussing this, and she looked at me. She goes, "Mutant, can we call it magical hospitality gene?" I said, "No, there's nothing magical about it. No. It's a freaking mutation because you need to have your head examined to be in this business because it is so challenging. It is so difficult, and you give and give, but you can't help yourself, Stephanie. You must do it. You must be of service." And I feel that we can tap into that and exploit it in the best sense of the word. It doesn't matter if you're a cop, if you're a trash person, if you're a CEO, it doesn't matter. It's everything we do is about hospitality. Right?
I'm doing the sorority girl thing.
I'll take it.
We spent an hour talking about this yesterday in strategic planning for Stuckies in our strategery, hospitality, that one word. And it's not, like you said, it's a mutant because it takes a certain skill set when someone is being completely inhospitable to be kind, to be outgoing, to take that extra step. Hospitality is in the face of someone being really rude to you, that you smile and you are pleasant and you're kind. And hospitality is when visitor to this country comes for the third day in a row and you recognize him and you say, let me get your order. Let me suggest something for you, because you remember that person and you treat them specially because you know they're a return customer, and you're extra nice because you know they're a visitor from another country. And so you want to give them that special welcome. And that is what we talked about yesterday in strategic planning, that needs to be a guiding core value of Stuckey's, hospitality. My grandfather had a saying, every traveler is a friend. And the reason I like that saying so much is not that it just plays on what we do at Stuckey's, which is make road trips fun, but really when you think about it in its essence, we're all travelers. We're travelers through life. So everyone can relate to every traveler is a friend. If you treat people like a friend, then your business will thrive.
This is everything.
It's everything.
It really is. And I have a big dopey grin on my face, Stephanie, because I hear it in your voice. And this is something that, again, I go back to authentic. You can't fake it. What was it about your grandfather that drew him to this business, or to create this business? Was he a people person, Stephanie?
He was. He genuinely loved being around people. And what was special is that he really was welcoming to everyone. One of the points I like to bring out about Stuckey's in the early years is we were in the Deep South, that's where we're based, during the height of segregation and the Jim Crow era, when many establishments, especially roadside establishments, were segregated, and Stuckey's was never segregated. So my grandfather really welcomed and opened the doors to Stuckey's to everyone.
Okay,
and,
hold on. This is something we can't just gloss over. So you are in the Deep South, and you're saying that your grandfather, when did you guys open?
The first roadside shack, it really was a lean-to shed, was 1937, but the first store would have been 1939, 1940.
Okay.
And then really took off after World War II. World War II hit, he lost all the stores. He started selling candy to the troops, which is how he kept the business afloat, and how he got access to sugar that had been rationed during the war, and built his first candy plant during the war because he had to produce the candy and he had to box the candy. So when the war was over, GIs come home, they remember Stuckey's candy and their ration kits, and they're having babies and they're taking vacations, they're getting on the highway. And that's when he really started building the stores that people remember.
Hey, so Stuckey's candies were in ration kits. I'm on the front lines, and I open my MREs and my kit, and there's a Stuckey's.
Stuckey's candy.
Here's something you got to school me on too. When I went back to Texas, I got schooled quickly. Hey, it's pecan. A pecan is something is a can that you pee in. It's not pecan. And I heard you, and I've heard you say pecans. Right. So is that?
I do say pecan.
What is it? Is that what's right? What's wrong? And is it regional? Is it regional?
It is regional, but there are many Georgians, including my business partner, who say pecan.
Oh, they do.
In fact, 70% of Americans pronounce it pecan.
So you're an outlier, Stephanie.
I'm an outlier. There's actually 4 ways to pronounce it. Can you come up with the 4 ways?
Let's see.
It's all how you put the accent.
It's the emphasis on the wrong syllable once again, right?
Emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Yeah, the wrong syllable. Yeah. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So pecan.
Right.
Pecan.
Mm-hmm.
Pecan.
Pecan, right.
Pecan.
There you go. And peckin. Can somebody just sit down on that E? Peckin. A peckin?
I need to start saying peckin, and that will just blow people's minds.
Pass me some of those peckins, y'all. Yeah.
And it cracks me up that people think that it somehow makes me an expert on syntax and correct pronunciation of a word because I'm in the business. I sell them, but I always like to joke what my grandfather would say. We pronounce them however the buyer wants us to pronounce them. Pecan when we pick them, and pecan when we sell them. They're delicious. They're America's native nut. They're the only tree nut, snack nut native to the U.S.
That's an interesting bit of trivia.
Yeah. Almond, pistachio, macadamia, of course, Hawaiian.
Now, here you go. You stood that
they're
A
not
up.
native.
Pistachio. See, there was a little, you didn't go pistachio. Pistachio.
I hate those pistachios.
Now you sound like you do not sound like a Georgia peach to me, nor do you sound like a sorority Georgia peach to me. You have it sounds. I'm from New York. You sound a little more East Coast. Something going on there.
When I was a year old, my father got elected to Congress, and I moved to Washington D.C.
And
so
you've been
all
seeing
my
a therapist ever since.
It's been intense therapy, getting over growing up in a very supercharged political environment. My dad was in Congress during Watergate.
So he knew Leon Jaworski, huh? He was around?
He knew a lot of the players.
Yeah.
And he was actually close to Nixon. He was a Democrat, but he was a Southern Democrat and was very conservative. He's still alive. He's still conservative in his politics. He knew a lot of those players, and I went to school with some of those kids. Like G. Gordon Liddy's son was a couple years ahead of me in school. So it's really fascinating to see this play out in the news and on the television. Everyone was glued to their television. And then actually knowing some of these people that my father was friends with, or I'd go to work with my dad and I would see them.
Jamie Raskin's father also. Raskin's father was involved in the Pentagon Papers. I read that the other day, which was fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Daniel Ellsberg. He was.
See, and I went to school with Maria Sheehan and her dad, Neil Sheehan. Who just recently passed away.
That's right.
I knew him very well. Maria was one of my best friends. So It's really interesting growing up in that world. And it was humbling because people would sometimes say, did you grow up just feeling like you were the big fish in the little pond of Eastman, Georgia with your family running Stuckey's? First of all, we'd sold the company by the time I was born, but also I grew up in Washington, D.C. They didn't give a rat's ass about Stuckey's. None of them had heard of Stuckey's. They thought it was this very colloquial roadside stand type thing. It was not high society.
Not cool in the belt inside the Beltway, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to school with the Prince of Jordan was in my class. There were lots of them. Diplomats' kids, Pentagon high ups, senators. Stuckey's was just really not that big a deal.
Yeah. I love how you say it with a laugh, and I love the context of now how you think Stuckey's and you think, okay, this salt of the earth, and not saying that you aren't. You sound salty and earthy.
Yes, I'm salty.
All at once with a little sweetness mixed in there.
Yeah,
but that
sweet and savory.
Yeah, and we got some umami in there. You want it all.
Well, we are. We were talking about Japan. I know we're kind of going all over.
No, it's okay. It's
my mind works sometimes.
It's all good. It's nonlinear.
We are experimenting with flavors for pecans. We just bought a manufacturing facility, which is
congratulations.
One of the
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. That's exciting.
I'm really excited to be making stuff. I think this country is getting back to making stuff. COVID taught us that if you have this supply chain where you're dependent upon foreign countries, and not to sound xenophobic, because I definitely want to do business with other companies and that we're a global society, but at the same time, you need to be mindful of your supply chain. If there is a crisis, you want to be able to get access to your core product. And our core product is the pecan. You can also control the quality and you have better control of the pricing and your margins. We are shelling pecans. We are making the candies. We're making snack line. And we are experimenting with teriyaki pecans, which is the most delicious snack I've ever had. I sampled them yesterday and I almost just sat down and ate like a 3-pound bag.
And when going back to what you were talking about just being a maker, in this case being a food maker, and making stuff here in the United States, and that in that closed loop, it's great to have stuff that's global. But I think now more than ever, you're spot on. It's super important to help sustain not only local but hyper local. Right? I mean, it's a big deal, and it's certainly needed now more than ever in our lifetime.
And it's good for the environment. If you are producing close to where you are manufacturing, if you're growing a product and then you're processing it right near where you're harvesting that product, your carbon footprint is greatly reduced.
No question.
And then we're shelling on site, and then we're literally taking the shelled pecans from one manufacturing facility to the next, right next door, where we've got the candy making operation. You can't get any closer than that.
And then what happens with the husks and the shells when you strip down the nut? What do you do with that?
Good question. So we just bought this plant.
Did I ask my first good question? We're 30 minutes in, and my first good question. That's thinking
first
one that got called out.
Right?
Hold on. Let me.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go. Snaps. Where to go? Snaps. Okay, so sparkles.
So we got sparkles too.
So we do what the former owner did, which is they sell them not for a lot of money, but they do make a modest amount on selling them to a facility in Augusta, Georgia, which is right near where this facility is based in Rennes, Georgia. So in a nearby city for energy production in a paper making facility.
Nice.
I'm still learning how this manufacturing plant operates. So we bought a fully functional, turnkey ready company that's been in business since 1935. So everything has been running for decades. One thing we're doing is we are donating this week, just to see if it works, some of the husk to a nonprofit organization. I won't give any more details because we got to see if this works.
Sure.
If it works, we'll do a splashy press thing.
Okay.
But to a environmental nonprofit, and I, as head of sustainability for City of Atlanta, this was very much my space. So I know that world. So one of my contacts in the environmental world said, "What if we took your shells and used them as mulch?"
Yes, mulch.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. So we donated enough shells to use as a pilot project to see how it works. And if it works, then we'll roll it out more. Maybe we'll donate some. Maybe we'll sell some so we can at least cover our basic costs. So that's one way you can use them. Another way that I would really be interested in trying out is using the shells for wood chips or mixing them in with wood chips for barbecue.
Yeah, use them in the smokers. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Google it. It is a thing.
Yeah.
People do it. But what if we branded it Stuckey's pecan barbecue chips?
I love it. And
that's on my list.
I've seen, I was thinking the pathway up to the store, and that would be instead of crushed stone, you use the crushed husk and shell, and you're walking across the pecan path to paradise.
The pecan, mix it in some cement, and you have a nice little walkway there.
Just to do it just crushed like that. Just
crushed.
Just it'll look beautiful and earthy and wonderful, and it's eco and it's sustainable. But yeah, I've seen it used as mulch, and I'm glad to hear that. I love the idea. I don't know that I knew that you were the doyen of sustainability for the city of Atlanta. That's cool.
I was the head of sustainability for over 3 years. So
would you say, Stephanie, that Atlanta is a fairly green city or will become a fairly green city? What's going on sustainability wise in Atlanta?
It is. Atlanta really is a leader in sustainability and did not start with me. Started with Mayor Shirley Franklin, who was the first mayor to appoint a director of sustainability, and continued on with Mayor Kasim Reed, who I served under. And we did amazing things. We were at the Paris climate talks. We started the first electric vehicle program for the city that's in place to this day. At the time, it was the largest EV program in the Southeast. I'm not sure if it still holds that title. We created the first urban agricultural position, first director of urban ag position in the country.
What's the scope of that? What is urban ag? Is that for neighborhood farming or gardens, or what does that mean?
Activating city-owned property for community gardens and coordinating that whole effort. So getting access to free water supply, getting access to farming equipment, coordinating with local nonprofits, getting all the liability issues resolved. I mean, it was a couple of years to get that program created, and then working with farmers markets.
Yeah.
So access to local food, designing also public space. It was awesome, and it was a good ride. Then we had a change of administration. I continued in the sustainability world, working for an environmental nonprofit as their head of sustainability, and was teaching at the University of Georgia School of Law, teaching sustainability and climate change, when my dad's former business partners sent me an email. It was literally, I'm doing a recreation.
That's your sound effect. That's your sound effect. Yeah.
I got an email one day. My dad's business partner said, hey, we've got some Stuckey stock. Would you be interested in buying it? Nobody wanted this. And they're like, oh, well, let's give it to Stephanie. Maybe she'll buy
They
this
will rue the day,
stock
Stephanie.
for this company that has been losing money for 5 years. I had the capital because I worked my whole life, and I'd also practiced as an attorney. And so I had money from my law practice, from being in the legislature, from working for the city. So I'd saved up my money over my career, and I had access to capital because I had good credit. I bought out my dad's partners, and 6 months later, I bought out my dad. And then I got a business partner because I realized I can't run this company by myself. And then we jointly bought a candy plant, and we started turning a profit within 6 months.
Come on.
Despite COVID. And it's because it's a great brand.
It is a great brand.
We realized what was making money, which is the sale of the product. We can get into the stores later, but the stores are a fixer-upper. The stores need some serious TLC. So if you stop at a Stuckey's, some of them are going to be nice and really awesome, and some of them are going to be fixer-uppers.
Corporate stores, or are they still... No, so they're all franchisees, right?
I bought the company as is.
Okay.
I had a big as is sign on it. It's like when you buy something, a bargain price.
And caveat emptor. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I definitely a caveat emptor. Yeah. It's like buying something on sale. I bought Stuckey's at a bargain basement price. I negotiated the price down because it had been losing money. I bought as is. So we don't own any of the stores. There's 67 locations, only 20 are standalone stores. The rest are co-branded. So you might pull over to a travel stop on the side of the road, and it may be BP, it may be we're in a few pilots, and you'll see a little section that's the Stuckey's, and they pay a modest franchise fee to have that branded section. So we have 67 in total, and some of them really look bad and some of them look good. We have some stores that really look awesome that I'm very proud of, but we don't own or operate any of them. What we do have is the brand. I bought a brand, and then I bought a candy plant. So now I make the brand, the main product, and we have a distribution facility that we rent, but we operate that. So we distribute product to our stores, and where we make our profit is from the sale of our product.
Are you thinking that you would open new stores? You're going to stay away from that and just focus on a product that you can distribute, not be brick and mortar right now? What does that look like?
We grow at the speed of cash. We have to continue to drive revenue to be profitable enough to where we could afford to own and manage corporate stores. And it's not just owning the stores, right? It's managing the stores. So that, to me, is a bigger challenge. I have all sorts of real estate investors who come to me and say, well, I'm interested in investing in this building and we could have a Stuckey's, but I don't want to operate it. Well, that's the hard part.
Of course.
So I need owners and operators. So if anyone's listening out there, the easiest way for us to activate the stores is frankly the model where we don't own and operate. If there's a really good company out there that's interested in owning and operating the stores, that would be an ideal partner for us. But we are where we are. We are not interested in growing beyond our capacity. So we're trying to be very thoughtful in how we drive revenue at Stuckey's. And right now we are focused on selling our product. And what's been fascinating is my perception when I first took over the company, and this is something entrepreneurs have to learn to do and really applies to anything in life, is look at what's working. And sometimes that means you're going to have to let go of your preconceived notions. And sometimes there's a lot of emotion attached to that. So I'm really attached to the road trip and pulling over and stopping at Stuckey's and having this amazing experience. We used to have talking mynah birds and the dunking red birds, if you remember those, and little plastic statues of boys, and you pull down their pants and they pee in your face, like all these.
The Wee Willies, the
Mexican
tchotchkes.
jumping
Yeah,
beans,
tchotchke heaven. Yeah.
Chia pet, tchotchke. Like I was like all in, like I'm going to be doing this. And then I realized we're not making any money.
No, it's a skew nightmare. Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Oh, it's a skew nightmare. For those of you not understanding, that's like in retail terminology, that's each individual item that you sell is a skew. And we have hundreds and hundreds of SKUs. And the fascinating thing for us, which is true of a lot of companies, because we just did a SKU rationalization exercise, lots of fun. 20% of our product is driving 80% of our revenue. The old 20-80 rule. So you have to take a literal machete to your inventory and say, this isn't selling, this isn't selling. Focus on what works. And what works is that little humble pecan log roll. We sell the heck out of the pecan log roll. It blows my mind. I look at our sales reports and I'm obsessive about checking the sales reports. We sell hundreds of cases of pecan log rolls like every week. People love them.
It's a beautiful thing. Look at In-N-Out. What do they have? A dozen things on their menu. If they're lucky, look at Starbucks. You do what you're good at. You should just shed the rest and just focus on that and do it at such a high level.
And focus. Speaking of, we've talked about Starbucks a lot, and it's a great brand. And there's a reason why people talk about Starbucks. Howard Schultz, this is a story I heard, and I hope it's true because it's excellent. He walked into a Starbucks. They had music going. Remember, they had this whole music program,
Sure.
and you could buy the music, and they had the little cards.
Yep,
and
they had a label.
They had all this food
Yep.
and all this stuff going on. And he's like, where's the coffee? We're about the coffee. We're selling coffee. We're getting rid of the music. We're getting rid of the extra food stuff. Like we're going to minimize the menu. What's your core product? Our core product is pecans, a pecan log roll. Starbucks is coffee. We sell pecans. What I've done, though, I've recognized you can still be all about the road trip and just be crazy, obsessed, fanatic about the road trip. And that's the story of the brand. That's the tale I tell when I talk about the brand. That's what makes us unique and special and different. But what we're really actually selling, what the customer's buying, is pecan log roll. But I can talk about it. Hey, remember going to Oklahoma and visiting your grandparents and you stopped at Stuckey's and you pulled over and you bought a pecan log roll. And you know what? If you weren't old enough, if you're too young to remember that experience, you can still think, wow, that's a really cool retro brand. And look at their packaging. And it's got like a little car and a road trip. And I think road trips are cool. This brand looks cool. I'm going to try pecan log roll, or I'm going to try their pecan snacks that are healthy because I really don't like all that sugar.
What you're describing reminds me of the ego moment in Ratatouille when Linguini asks him, what do you want? And he says, give me perspective. You've seen this movie, I hope.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Well, and I have 2 kids, and I had about a decade there where I didn't do anything but watch G-rated movies, and then I got hooked on them, and now I love animated films.
It's one of the greatest movies. I don't care live action or not, but if you're in the hospitality business, this is a must movie. That's that transportational moment, Stephanie. He tastes that Ratatouille and bang, he's a kid again, right? Just takes him right back. You taste that pecan or pecan roll and you're gone. That's it. You're gone. And if you're not gone because you haven't had it, the authentic DNA can take you there. That's that power of the IP that you have. That's that power of that experience. And I would argue a little bit with you about, yes, Starbucks sells coffee, but it's probably, for my money, one of the first brands that realized that, hey, you know what? We don't just sell coffee, we sell a lifestyle. They really changed the whole way that Americans consume and experience coffee and community. They brought a very Italian approach, right? That's where Schultz was inspired by all of that. Mm-hmm. And aside from the fact that Italians, I mean, when we visited, there's nothing is to go. I mean, it wasn't. You had your coffee at the bar. You stopped. You paused. There was time spent, and Starbucks created that space, and they did it very well. But that's
exactly what I'm saying. Stuckey's, Stuckey's is trying to create that same experience. So thank you for clarifying that. We are selling pecans, but what is the story of that?
Yes.
What is that connection? It's the road trip. We're to the road trip experience, what Starbucks is to the coffee house experience.
And
that's what I want.
I would say, Stephanie, there's a strong vein of a reconnecting with a notion of Americana that's lost. And that is that sense of family, that sense of community. It's interesting to hear, and I'm going to thread this back now, that your grandfather in the Deep South, in a time of clear segregation, that and when you started to tell me this, I thought, hold on a second. You're telling me there was not a colored only and a white only water fountain bathroom at a Stuckey's? That's mind-blowing to me.
Well, not only that African Americans could safely stop. And there's a great documentary on PBS, and it's based on a book, which I need to read, which is called Driving While Black. It talks about travel for African Americans, and they go way back. They go back to slavery. They go to on the boat coming from Africa to this country. Like The prejudice in our society is so deep rooted. It goes back to those slave ships. Travel was so strongly linked with racism in this country. The South in the 1950s, being able to get from one place to the next was a dangerous thing. And they told the story of, with the Great Migration, so many African Americans fled the South as survival, went to Detroit, went to Chicago, went to so many of these northern cities, but they had family that stayed behind. So they come and visit them. And it was this world that they had left behind. And some of the next generation weren't exposed to it until their families took these road trips and they're wanting to pull over and they couldn't.
And they can't. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they had, that's the Green Book, if you've heard of that, or travel guide for, they call it Negro Travel Guide. And it says where they could safely stop. Most of those establishments were owned by other African Americans, but some were like Stuckey's that you could stop there. And we're in the movie, The Green Book. There's a scene, what an amazing recognition of my grandfather's legacy that we were included, that there's that scene in the movie.
Why was your grandfather like that? What was that about? How in Georgia at that time could a guy open a joint and go against the grain that way? How did that happen, Stephanie? How did he do it?
I can only hypothesize. I was 12 when he died, and I didn't know this about my family until The Green Book, the movie, came out. Like, we didn't really talk about it.
Really?
So it was fascinating to me. It was like, hey, how did we get in the movie? Well, we're in the book. Like, what? And actually, I take that back. I do remember, I didn't know necessarily we were in the Green Book, but when I ran for office and I was knocking on doors, and my district was actually majority African American, and I was knocking on doors in African American communities. I shamelessly used the Stuckey's logo on my political material. People would identify with the name and they'd say, oh, are you connected with Brand? And I would have African Americans of a certain generation tell me, well, I don't know anything about you, but I'm going to vote for you because we could always stop in your stores.
For real? This is what they said?
Yeah. Yeah. And I had one very influential African-American preacher who endorsed me I was running against the head of the NAACP.
Come on.
For DeKalb County. Yes. In a majority African-American district. And I had a very influential preacher in the African-American community endorse me. And he said, I am doing this for your grandfather. Yeah. So that's when I actually did first know that Stuckey's was welcoming, was when I was running for office. And my father said the same thing. My father, being in Congress, when he first ran, his district was 30% African American. And he said it was the Black vote that elected him. They would come up to him and say, we are voting for you because your father let us stop in your stores.
This is really beautiful.
Cool.
This is so awesome.
But back to your question, why did he do that? I don't know. I never asked him. He died before I was aware of this fact. So this is my purely conjecture based on what I know of his life story, is that he grew up poor in the Depression and was working the family farm. And he worked alongside African Americans. They were all poor. And I know some whites in the South who were poor had the sense of wanting to feel like they were better than somebody. So they would put down African Americans. But I think that there are a lot, like my grandfather, I'd like to think this, the good in me wants to think this, that there were a lot like my grandfather who were the opposite. We're all in this together. We're all working the farm together. Let's get along. And the story I know that I've read and going through my grandfather's archives, when I bought the company, one of the few tangible things I got were about 6 boxes of archives, my grandfather's papers that nobody had looked at them in 50 plus years. And I was reading through them, and I read in a couple of the papers a story of a man named John King, who was an African-American farmer who worked on the farm with my grandfather. And when my grandfather was driving around the countryside buying up pecans and really first starting Stuckey's, he and John King drove around together. It was because of John King, in part, that he was able to do the work that led to starting Stuckey's. John King remained working with Stuckey's throughout his life. One account said that John King actually owned a Stuckey's at one point, which made me really happy to know that, because that was not a common thing for African Americans to own businesses, much less have a white man give him a business. So that made me really happy. But then I tracked down John King's family and I talked to his son, and his son said, no, he never got a store. I heard from my mom that she was disappointed. Another son said, no, that's not what I heard. I heard he just, he wasn't able to run a store. He didn't have the capacity. He was not able to read or write. So I've heard different conflicting stories, but what I have seen is the 25th anniversary of Stuckey's. There was a commemorative edition of our business newsletter. There's featured in there a picture of my grandfather with John King, and they're standing next to each other laughing. And they looked really happy. And it said, here's the story of Mr. Stuckey and John King. That is concrete. And the other thing is, one of the sons said, well, your grandfather used to take my dad fishing. He would pick them up and they go to Florida and they go fishing. So that's kind of cool. Like, they were friends. I don't know. I think it comes from my grandfather just working alongside African Americans, and they were part of the business. I mean, they helped work the candy plants. They helped run the sign painting company. They drove the trucks. They were integral to the business, just like women were. There were a lot of secretaries too. They were all women. They helped run the company. They weren't leadership positions for either women or African Americans, but they were critical to the business.
I love the notion, and I love the fact that it is, in fact, a fact, that it was real, that it really happened. I wonder how a white family coming in and seeing a black family at the same counter in the same store, how did that go down? I mean, in the segregated South, it's lost to time, unless people remember, unless anyone remembers and can tell me. And I found very few photos of African Americans in the stores, but I actually found one last week going through papers, and you have to look pretty closely, but it's a photo of an old store, and you can see there's like 3 white men at the gas pump, and there's a African American man walking in the store. So I was like, oh, there's a picture. I got one. Like, it's hard. There's so few photographs from that time. And frankly, they weren't taking photographs, because if they really made this a thing and publicized it, a lot of the white establishments that allowed African Americans to use their facilities were targets. Yeah. They were burnt. Yeah. They had a big cross in their yard. Yes. That is why I'm thinking, how did he make it happen? How did he do it?
I think he just did the right thing quietly. That I know from my aunt, his daughter. He had 2 kids, my father and my aunt did say he did the right thing quietly. I also know he gave a lot of scholarships to African Americans to go to college in Eastman, but all that's lost to time. Yeah. None of that was recorded.
And your grandfather grew up poor. Did he go to college? Probably not.
He had to drop out. He had to drop out of University of Georgia School of Law during the Depression, I'm a graduate there, and my father's a graduate. So I think he knew my father graduated from Georgia Law. I think he would have a sense of pride knowing that even though he dropped out, he paid for me to go. I like to joke, I got a Stuckey scholarship. Nice. Very special scholarship. You have to have the last name Stuckey to get it. Thanks to him, I went to law school. That was paid for by him. I had a trust fund that paid for my education.
I'm sure he would be very, very proud, Stephanie, about your myriad accomplishments in law and in service to the community, and what you're doing now with, again, just an iconic brand. Let me just ask you one more thing, just on the sustainability note. Your packaging. How do you approach packaging with plastic being the conundrum that it is for merchants? What are you thinking? What are you doing?
Oh, Jeff, we came so close to ending without a really tough question. You threw the hard one at the end.
This is what I do. Yeah, I throw those softballs. Yeah.
This is a hard one.
Yeah.
Here's the challenge. We have to have product that stays fresh. What causes packaged food products to go bad? Oxygen and light. So you need packaging that's opaque. You need packaging that is sucked out, that has oxygen sucked out of it. And there's some, I'm going to get the term wrong, but there's some sort of nitrogen injection
Nitrogen machine. Flush. Yeah, there are different.
Nitrogen flush. Yeah. Thank you. Nitrogen flush. You need to have these processes in place, and then you need to have a really tight seal, and it needs to be opaque. Well, that opaque plastic, that opaque material is not recyclable unless there's some source I'm unaware of. That what I am aware of is there are certain companies, TerraCycle's one, and I'm sure there are others. TerraCycle's one that I interacted with when I was at the City of Atlanta. And that's the company that takes, if you have kids, you'll recognize this, the Capri Sun juice box. A lot of schools will recycle them, and they have a special box where you drop them and they will repurpose them. So they can't recycle them, but they'll repurpose them and they'll make them into tote bags, for example. So they'll make them into other useful materials. And we could do that with our packaging if we had a designated drop-off, which would require a whole program that we don't have the budget for. And the companies actually have to pay to have that product made. And then we'd have to sell the product for an exorbitant price. It would literally be a $200 bag made of old Stuckey's pecan bags. And then you have to sanitize them. I'm sorry, that's a challenge. Here's what we do. Our displays and our packaging are recycled content corrugated cardboard that we buy from Pratt, which is a Georgia-based company. All of their corrugated cardboard is recycled content. We're trying to do what we can, and then we source local as much as possible. Especially with our food product, I'm trying to have as many of the products that we source be certified Georgia grown from the Georgia Department of Ag, and we're a Georgia grown certified company. But the packaging is a real challenge for anyone in the food business. If you figure that out, if you crack that nut, got to end with a pun. You want to do the right thing. It's just sustainability, has three components. It's the environment, but it's also economics, it's equity, it's environmental justice, it's making sure that you're including that human component. So if we're producing a product, are people being treated fairly? Are they getting a living wage? All of that. And we're working on the wage issue. Just bought a plant, but we got to get profitable. So you got to be sustainable profitably also. So it's a challenge.
Yeah, be happy you're not in the straight restaurant business, because the people who've just had their careers completely obliterated by the pandemic, right. And having a lot of conversations about this has really been a house of cards that's been built up since really post-World War II also, Stephanie, right? Where if you really think about from farm to table and then just make that circle, it's completely flawed. You've got workers in the field that aren't making a living wage, farmers that are barely keeping it together, restaurant workers in the back of the house who are also not making a living wage. And everybody is looking for cheap food, and we're poisoning ourselves while we're eating. This is a whole nother conversation, a whole nother episode. But I'm inspired by the fact that because you come with this toolkit, Stephanie, so you're a dangerous CEO. In the best sense of the word. You've got this information, you've got this experience. Just the fact that we can have this conversation, that you're troubled by it is beautiful to me. That you're thinking about it, that you're sweating those details. You don't have the answers now, that's okay. But that you're thinking about it. This is how we're going to build great American companies and businesses and initiatives I had an epiphany once when I was working back at Four Seasons with my team, and I came to our pre-shift meeting and I said, you know what, guys, I realized that saying the devil's in the details, it's not, it's God. God is in the details. This is where the beauty, this is where the alignment, this is where the connectivity, I hear the snaps. This is where it all happens, man. This is everything right here. God is in the details. So we need to sweat the details. So the fact that you, Stephanie, are sweating those details tells me that Stuckey's it was a special brand. It is a special brand, but man, I think the sky's the limit for you.
It is in the details. And I will make one quick statement about you talked about poisoning our bodies with the foods we eat. I am very health conscious. I'm a vegetarian. I watch what I eat. And my partner agrees with me. We're getting the high fructose corn syrup out of our product. We're experimenting with tapioca syrup, which is actually so amazingly delicious. The pecans just crunch.
Nice.
It's so crisp. It's amazing. It's actually better than the high fructose corn syrup. And we're also looking at rice syrup, but I think we might go with the tapioca, but we're working on it. It's a process because so much of what's available is the crap. And here's the call for the listeners. If you as a consumer believe this, don't buy the crap. Spend a little extra money to support companies that are paying more for a living wage for their companies, are paying more to have the better ingredients. And that comes with a cost because we can't function as a business if we don't make a profit. We don't make a profit. I mean, what's profit? It's like you've got to cut cost and you've got to have your price strategy. And so you got to have the price high enough that you're going to cover your costs and then have a profit. If we're going to increase some of our costs to have higher quality ingredients and ensure that we have a well-paid workforce, we're going to have higher pricing.
We are literally all in this together. It's hard for us to see that this is not about the near term. This is about how we live on this planet in a sustainable way. And it's not just some liberal tree hugger kind of conversation. This is about our health. I was talking with a chef the other day, and I said it might be interesting, chef, to have a conversation with wellness companies, with pharma companies, and that there should be a stipend that comes from them, because if we're eating better, then we're not dependent upon the pharma and the meds, and we're healthier. We're not in the doctor's office, right? I mean, then you just blow everything up.
Yeah,
so
I'm very mindful of that as a purveyor of candy.
Yeah,
I'm mindful of that. Right. I seriously, that's one of the things that keeps me up at night.
Yeah,
one of the many things, and so my rationale, and it's more than a rationale. I can't do this unless I'm authentic. I can't sell this candy unless I believe in it, which is why I absolutely had to buy the manufacturing plant, because I do believe in it, because we make it ourselves.
Yes.
It's got the Stuckey name on it. By God, it's going to live up to the Stuckey brand.
It's beautiful.
So we're going to put high quality ingredients, and it will be an indulgence. And yes, we will have some sweets in there. It's a treat. Treat yourself. We're going to put high quality, fresh ingredients that, as much as possible, we're going to have them locally sourced. And the pecan is the healthiest nut. So we're doing what we can to make a product that is a wonderfully delicious treat that has some health benefits to it. I'm not going to say it's like 100% the most healthy thing you've ever had in your life, because it's candy, but it's going to be really awesome, delicious candy that has pecans in it.
If you're going to indulge, and we all should at times, right? We all should. If you're going to indulge, treat yourself, man, and take a trip down memory lane and back again, because I think while it's beautiful, Stephanie, because this is in a way a backwards looking company, very much looking forward. You're the right woman at the right time. I think your grandfather would be very,
well, we're not,
proud.
I say we're not living in the past. We're learning from the past.
For sure.
We're moving forward.
Yeah, you're moving forward. I'm inspired by your passion for this business and your vision, and I wish you a ton of success.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
I'm so excited for Stephanie and her team and for their journey reimagining and re-energizing an American family brand that has finally come home. You can find out more about Stuckey's and even order directly from them at stuckeys.com. It doesn't matter whether you say pecan, puccan, or peccan, as Stephanie and I came up with. Just eat them, enjoy them, and celebrate a piece of American road trip nostalgia that's very much present and looking forward to the future. Thanks again for hanging out with Stephanie and myself today. I hope you'll join me again with new episodes dropping every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. Until then, stay safe, and remember, you'll find no bed of roses wherever you find fine podcasts. Thanks, and see you soon. Bye.